I'm ready.
Well, good afternoon, everyone that is watching me now. Let me hope you're doing good. That has been so good. Let me think everything is moving on well. Today is 29th of May 2024, and today South Africa is having general elections. Um, we have seen a different prominent people in South Africa going in for elections, starting with Zuma, uh, the incumbent president, President Ramaphosa, and others. Even the Mighty Malema guy. Today they have voted for president, and of course other positions in South Africa. So uh, election elections is something that of course which different of course African countries experience for a period of time. Let it be 5 years, 2 years, or 5 years, or even 3 years, depending on what the constitution says about it. So a lot of things like go on during elections. People expect to see new leaders during elections. So talking about South Africa's elections, we see that today is a significant day in South Africa. It is election day, like I said, when, of course, millions of South Africans head to the polls to cast their votes and decide their country's fate. So, if you're South African and you have not voted yet, go for voting because I think it's becoming that time for voting is coming to an end. So, if you have not voted and you're in South Africa, go and vote. So, this election is particularly historic as it marks the 30th year of electoral democracy in South Africa since the end of white majority rule in South Africa that existed for a couple of years. So we see that in South Africa today, registered voters is of about a total of 27.75 million South Africans, which of course registered to vote in these current elections. So the gender distribution is approximately 44.76% men and of course 55.24 women. So the people who are voting, we see women engaging in voting more than men compared to the recent years in South Africa. So political parties, there are of course 1,792 registered political parties vying for the votes of these citizens, the 27.75 million people I talked about that registered for voting. So each party hopes to shape the nation's future. So we see that key provinces such as Gauteng with 6.5 million registered voters is the most significant voting province. KwaZulu Natal follows closely with 5.7 million voters, and other provinces include the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and of course Northwest and Free State and Northern Cape. So incidents, despite the excitement, there have been some challenges. We see that special voters already went to the polls on Monday and Tuesday, but there were, of course, glitches. Additionally, that tax protesters in the Eastern Cape led to the closure of some voting stations. So the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa is working to ensure citizens can vote safely. So, security measures. Talking about security measures for now in South Africa, we see that to safeguard the integrity of the process of the IEC or the Independent Electoral Commission in South Africa, this is the, of course, the organization or the ministry that is responsible for electoral process in South Africa, is increasing security visibility where ballot boxes and other election materials are stored. So more police officers, of course, have been deployed in different places in South Africa where elections are going on. So uh, we see that the incumbent president in South Africa is, of course, is one of the people that have engaged in these elections. But we have been seeing South Africa going through a lot. South Africa has been going through a lot for this term where President Ramaphosa has been, of course, a president. A lot of things have been going on in South Africa. We have been seeing violences in South Africa. We still see apartheid in South Africa. We still see places in South Africa where we see whites, of course, whites only. You can no longer see blacks in those places. So, however, the president has not done enough. So, there is this guy who is called Malema. That is also another terrible person in South Africa who, of course, is hoping for presidency. I was watching uh, one of his general campaign some days back where he was saying that I don't know whether these people uh, the things they talk about during campaign. I don't know whether it comes within their minds or they first investigate. They first go down to the road to find people in, of course, what people go through. The guy was saying that he's going to build for like for homeless South Africans because we saw a lot of South Africans live in ghetto. most of the South Africans live in ghetto. They are homeless. So it was like we are going to build a three-bedroom house, a three-bedroom house where you're going to have a chicken in that house, where you're going to be having a sitting room, and of course the living the sleeping room. That was among what, of course, that guy said. He also said that you're going to have a toilet inside, a flush toilet inside. So I was surprised. We once had Bobby Wine in 2020 where he said that he's going to pay the police over 1 million Ugandan shilling. I don't know whether these people revise these manifestos or they just want to excite people about what they can do and what they cannot do. But you can't promise people. People are going through a lot. You're promising people instead of creating jobs for people so that they can build for themselves houses. You're telling people that you're going to build houses with a flush toilet, and he was emphasizing about the flush toilet. I don't know whether most of the South Africans are so much interested in the flush toilets, or they don't have flush toilets, or have never seen flush toilets, or either they are going to eat flush toilets, because a lot of youths in South Africa, they are unemployed, yet the population is growing very fast in South Africa. So a lot of things, despite of the challenges South Africa is facing today, uh, uh, despite of this, the challenges South Africa is facing today, an oppositional leader um, comes out and says that he's going, of course, to build a three-bedroom house with a kitchen and and of course a flush toilet within that house. I don't know whether all South Africans are interested in this. However, it might be a good idea. I don't know whether all the youths, the homeless youths that are on the streets of South Africa, all of them are going to be favored by this if at all Malema wins these elections. So we see that South Africa still faces challenges of energy crisis that have so caused created hardships. So these are the things I would have expected, of course, these politicians to come out and say about, but they are not talking about them. They are talking about constructing flush toilets for South Africans like Malema. So South Africa is going through a challenge of energy crisis for now. We see, despite of South Africa, of course, mining some of the minerals that create energy, it is still facing energy crisis within the region. Of course, most of the minerals that of course produce energy, they are exported uh, outside, they're exported outside Africa. They don't benefit individual South Africans. When we look at those minerals that produce energy that can help, of course, to combat the energy crisis that is in South Africa today, we see that a spate of violence crimes that are, of course, heightened fear and insecurity in communities. South Africa is one of the countries here in Africa that, of course, have a lot of insecurities. I've seen I've seen very many kids hijacked by, of course, by should I call them terrorists in South Africa. A lot of kids have been killed. I don't know why these people are targeting kids. If at all they take your kid, they ask for some money. If at all you can't raise that money, they end up killing. I've seen a lot of a lot of photos of kids have been, of course, spreading on social media. These are kids that have been killed, and even individual people. We saw that Lucky Dube was shot by the people they claim to be robbers, like car robbers. So even up to now, insecurity in communities in South Africa still ranks high in the region of South Africa. But we are not seeing, of course, politicians talking about solving such issues. If at all the government that is in South Africa, the incumbent government, has failed to combat such violent crimes in South Africa. Why is it that we are not seeing politicians talking about this? Should we think that these politicians, they are the ones that are supporting these violent crimes? A lot of people are having guns in South Africa, not for protection but for crimes. So we see that poverty and unemployment that is taking a heavy toll. 1 million who are struggling to make ends meet. Poverty, a lot of people, and most especially the blacks, most especially the Africans, the black South Africans. These are people that are facing a lot of unemployment and poverty in South Africa. But we don't see politicians talking about this. So, a poor education system that is hindering the country's progress and development. People think that South Africa is, of course, developed to some extent, but we still see a lot of people uneducated, a lot of people not going to school. Where are these people? What are they doing? Like the prime ministers, like the members of the parliament in South Africa. What have they done towards these challenges that is South Africa is going through right about now? Yet we now hope to change new leaders in South Africa today by the ballot.
All right. Thank you so much, those who are watching us. I'm Africa Maria, and we welcome you all. Seeing we are being watched by those on YouTube, Facebook, and then Twitter.
Yeah, password.
South African actually election today, which may bring change, but which of course may bring change, a good change, or we are not sure. But of course, we are seeing a turn up of the youth being low. It's like the youth have. Of course, maybe it's a little bit early to decide, but we are seeing a lot of youths have not engaged in the election of this, of course, the 2024 election, which is currently taking place in South Africa now. And, all over Africa, apparently, most of the youths are really tired of this whole the fake promises and the fake, things that, of course, our leaders are doing. And giving, of course, talking about South Africa as for now, I would say South Africa is going through a trial of unemployment and, of course, a huge challenge between a huge employment, gap or challenge between the foreigners or those other people who are just coming into South Africa and the native South African. Now, I've been following these campaigns of different people or different politicians. At times, I always say something. Yeah, maybe South Africans understand this better than anybody else. But like always say, when you are in a relationship, when you are in love with somebody, and at times you don't get to understand the bad these people are doing because you are clouded with the love you have towards these people. I don't see. And usually it's other people who usually see like why are they even talking about that. Now this is Africa, this is the youth and their political leaders, this is the youth in Africa and the decision they make towards politics. Once the youth fall in love with you, no matter what, they will definitely support you. And this is usually the problem that most of the Africans are experiencing. Innocent spoke about Malema. Yeah, I also saw that very campaign, and that at times things a little bit weird, and I'm sorry because Malema has been in politics since he was like a young man. All right. He moved from different political parties when informed. He was there during those days of the struggles and all that. I expect to see a bigger picture, not to talk only about Winnie Mandela. I love Winnie Mandela, really, and I think she would be the perfect person to bring change. But if you want to talk about Winnie Mandela, I even see Bob Wine talking about Winnie Mandela. Bob Wine of Uganda talking about, I don't know what he knows about Winnie Mandela, but if you're someone who supports such a caliber, such a woman, if your vision is directed to Winnie Mandela's vision, then we expect to see a bigger picture of course, or a bigger dream or a bigger South African dream, rather than buildings, of course, houses that, of course, you're not going to build unless you settle some major factors that, of course, are affecting a country like South Africa. South Africa is among the most developed countries in Africa, and I give salute to South Africa. And it's a beautiful place, actually, with beautiful people, despite with a culture that I would adore and really love. South Africa has a very strong history that I grew up admiring throughout. If you still go on my Facebook pages, my real Facebook pages, you realize that apparently 95% of the people I have on those pages are South African, because I'm someone who has been following South African history for a very long time. And since my childhood, as growing up, I've had a lot of stories about South Africa, the great people of South Africa, and actually it bleeds my heart just to see such a great nation that I expected. When you're a child, at times you don't have that biasness that I belong somewhere else. But I feel like South Africa should be one of the countries in Africa that holds the horns of Africa with no fear whatsoever. But to see this great country with a great heritage and a strong history, like no other, really, it's been torn apart by greed and, of course, segregation and all that. Now, when we look at South Africa's development, the biggest question that should run in the mind of the people is that, is South African development really benefiting the South African black people? Or is this development benefiting the indigenous people? Why do we have a lot of black South Africans car hijacking, more especially the young people, right? Why do? Because at times, I'm sorry, I'm not someone who supports crime, but at times people need to survive, right? At times people go through a lot. For someone to go straight up on the front line with the guns being shot over their head, these are people who have sold their hearts. They must have gone through a lot, and now they don't even care whether they're going to die or not, whether they're going to get caught or not. These are people who have been roasted under the sun, and they have nothing to lose. And I think as black South African leaders are trying to campaign or trying to bring change into Africa, these are the most things they should first look at. Before, let a South African be a South African in their country. We celebrate the development of South Africa and, of course, rank it to be among the most developed countries in Africa. But the biggest question is, are the indigenous South Africans or the black South Africans in South Africa benefiting from this development? You will understand that the biggest percentage of the shareholders who control the South African economy are actually not South Africans. Actually, they are not indigenous South Africans. I know when I'm supposed to mention South Africa, I'm supposed to mention the white South African, but the truth still remains that they came to South Africa, right? The truth still remains. All right, people will say, don't talk about that hurting a history of South Africa. The truth still remains, we had white in South Africa causing about segregation, causing about of course, the apartheid and all that. And yeah, when you talk about it now, you are not doing right. All right, everybody's gonna say, let that past pass. the biggest, I think people don't look at the bigger picture of this whole thing, okay? Because I'm letting the past pass, but are they letting it pass? Why do we have foreigners influence the entire South Africa's economy? Why do we have the white South Africans still taking control? When we had Nelson Mandela come after having a history of Nelson Mandela and him being taken into prison, when we knew, when we heard, when the world heard that Nelson Mandela was going to be the president of South Africa, the entire African continent celebrated really. But little did they know there was a huge matrix that was hiding behind Nelson Mandela's face. When Nelson Mandela was brought as the president, I was expecting to see South Africa being given back to, of course, the African or the black South African at that time. But rather, it was a different story entirely. I know it is very important for us to preach about the worldly peace. It is okay for you to preach about the worldly love. I need to love you, you need to love me. We need to love each other so that we can live in a harmonized country or world, so that we can live in a peaceful world. But are you sure they're going to let you live that peaceful world? I think this is the question. And this is where a lot of Africans are falling prey. All right. That has Maria Helisati to A2M here. Nice seeing you early today. Thank you so much, Jibijaba. And thank you so much for joining our live. Yeah, we are early today. So, like I say, the biggest question in your mind, because it would just be so stupid of you to love somebody who's never going to give that back. It is just so stupid of you to let somebody have control over you for their own selfish gains. Nowadays we have got a preaching of one love, one world, one whatever it is. But when you stand at the corner in the darkness of your room, does it come in your mind that the people you are preaching about or the people you would wish to unite with are not ready? This is being seen even today. Except now, we are not seeing this entire game is in a matrix where that it only takes someone with a broader mind to really see how this game is still played. Now, South Africa is one of the countries in Africa that actually started the use of GMOs, that's genetically modified things. And actually, I can say the health of South African is not as strong as it was before. Now, who gave We Are the World? This is Jama's comment right here. Um, if at all you see a country like South Africa, when we see the people who signed the treaties of course, South Africa working together with the pharmaceutical companies and allowing genetically modified plants to be introduced in South Africa, that's around maybe 1998, 94, something like that. I'm forgetting the exact year, but I guess 1994, 1998. um it was those people who were, it was the white South Africans who were running South Africa's economy, right, at that time. So that means the black South Africans had no right or they had no choice rather than to agree, because the land of South Africa was taken from them and they were made squatters. And the white South Africans were in, of course, occupied these most fertile lands, where, of course, they had the ability to introduce the genetically modified things in South Africa. And now South Africa is one of the toughest countries that is actually is among the toughest countries in the world, by the way, that is, of course, involving in the genetically modified food. Now, if you're somebody who is looking at, when we look at genetically modified things, these are things that have got a lot to do with the genes, all right? They're a lot to do with the genes. Now, if at all we are having South African political leaders that are not addressing sensitive issues like this one, then we expect to see really a population of South African decreasing in a given time. And I wonder who is going to lead South Africa, because I can tell you Usually, when these white people have their plans, there is always a bigger plan. There is always a bigger picture they have towards the black people. It is only us who don't see these things. Now you can see that in South Africa, of course, death rates of South Africans has also increased compared to way back. And of course, the lifespan of South Africans has decreased compared to the days back, you know. And these are one of the major things now. The white South Africans who introduced the genetically modified things in South Africa are actually not consuming them. We are having South Africa was and is still a center of course, broadcast. I will use that very word broadcast. It is a center that broadcasts genetically modified things all over Africa. Even here in Uganda, we still have fruits that come from South Africa and they're GMOs and people buy them. We have um, tinned milk, we have tinned milk, we have a lot of things that, more especially perishables, that come from South Africa, and people are consuming those things right here. And we are consuming it as bad as the indigenous or the black South Africans are really consuming it, right? And you realize that most of these white people actually who introduced the same thing, no other major purpose behind, or the reason behind the introduction of such kind of things, and they don't really consume them. Now you realize GMOs coming down to this side, they get so expensive, but when they're in South Africa, they are cheaper. So you will realize that this is the cheapest thing a black South African can afford. But yes, we've seen a lot of black South Africans also coming out and of course walking through the thorns and making it to the top. What still hurts is that we still have leaders who don't see where the Africa is going. Malema himself, by the way, Malema is one of the celebrities, is one of the South African celebrities and leader who is known all over different social media platforms, especially, and I know. But of course, of recent, I think a lot of youths from South Africa are withdrawing from supporting Julius Molema. Now, we know that we have a lot of uh, presidential candidates that, of course, have come. We have Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa, come here. Eh? Who is that?
Yeah, for me,
We have Ramaphosa, we have John Sten Hussein, we have Julius Malema, of course, in the Julia. When I see Julius Malema, I just see Bobi Wine of Uganda because they have that. When you listen to Julius Malema's speech, he has that vigorous voice in his words, but. Yeah, I think he has said it all throughout time. Maybe I don't know. Maybe because most of the time he's lost of words. Most of the time, um, despite that vigorousness in his words and all that, so which of course is political. Um, I don't see Julius Malema discussing the most important thing, and Jim Jabba says that he has a cult of personality. If he has a cult of personality, I lost interest in Malema when he wrapped himself in the rainbow flag. Um, uh, by the way, I don't know why he shouldn't support Nelson Mandela. He's like a hypocrite a little bit. He doesn't support Nelson Mandela. He claims I love Winnie Mandela, but he does exactly what Nelson Mandela did. And sorry, a lot of South Africans don't really know about Nelson Mandela. They will even put their head to be cut off. In support of this dude. So, like Jib Jabba said that he has that cult like personality. Besides that, I actually Malema doesn't have Africa at his interest because everything at times he says is just something anyone can say. I've been following his speeches for the time. I don't know. Maybe anyway. Everyone has everyone was created differently, and they have ways of communication. But at times, when you are, we have seen great politicians. Amaso gagamudu kazetoteka. It is okay to build homes, but are you building these homes for people to sleep hungry? It is okay to build homes, and there is one thing I know: there is no way any African government is going to give a home to people for free. But if you have not given people the ability to build their own homes, then you are doing bullshit because even when you build these homes, they will still not afford these homes, no matter how cheap these homes are. And I don't know where Nelson, I mean, Malema really has concentrated on these homes. I can tell you, yes, yes, politicians always say what we want to hear. Politicians always say what they want to. Give the South Africans their land back, and I believe they will have homes. You cannot give people homes, and by the way, the truth to be told, there is no way a government or any government is going to build homes for free. Homes where it's going to give you free water, free electricity, free things. I don't think homes is the most important things, an important thing that a low South African is looking for. I believe there are lots of people who have built homes and they need something. Of course, everyone can build a home if you have given them that ability to be able to sustain themselves and sleep in their homes peacefully. All right. So this whole home thing is okay, but um, is it the most important thing? Because I know South Africans have the potential of course, constructing their own homes. If at all you give the power, you give them the power to run their economy. And at times, by the way, and this is not, and this is true. Most of the South African leaders are actually puppets. They are running South Africans on orders of somebody else, and this is why we are not seeing South Africa, of course, moving forward. Let Innocent to share with you a video, I guess, about Malema's discussion. Okay, we'll get that focus. So there's this,
So I was looking for that video. Yeah, I was looking for that video where Malema was, of course, convincing South Africans that he's going to, of course, to build them houses with a flush toilet and a kitchen. I don't know whether South Africans are looking up to this because to me, this is a deal to scam South Africans because but all these people they are not owning land. Where will these people survive? You have not employed these people to be of course self-made in whatever they are going to do. Even the houses that you're going to construct to them, they are going to be taken by the government. Yes, title of the land ownership plus the business environment that supports black and the refocused education system. I learned from you. Most Africans don't know what riches they sit on. Yeah, this is true jabber. And by the way, looking at South Africa, however much South Africa is looked as a country that is developed. But we see that South Africans they are not educated. Most of the South Africans and the black South Africans they are not educated. They have not attained any class. I was watching a certain
Mm.
video from South Africa. Still, it was kind of documentary on YouTube. Someone was like, I'm in South Africa, but just pray for me so that I cross this path. He was trying to move around South Africa, some of the ghetto areas in South Africa, but there are a lot of people, a lot of insecurities there in these ghettos where, of course, where the blacks of course, are living. Looking at South Africa, it is the blacks that are having weapons. When you look, it is the blacks that are, of course, engaging in drug activities. They are homeless. They are not educated. They are unemployed. Why is it that they don't resolve to crimes that we see in South Africa day and night about hijacking children and, of course, kids in South Africa? So it's not that, and by the way, Africans should learn from this. It's not like if you change a leader, because before Ramaphosa, the incumbent president of South Africa, this is not the only guy that has been in South Africa's politics ever since. Ever since Mandela's regime, we have seen a lot of presidents coming in South Africa on different terms, but the situation had never and never changed. We see the same thing, northwest, Mazaras has a Chris when I come South Africa. Mazaras, northwest. Okay, I don't know what is meaning by northwest, but
Northwest West, yes, South Africa. Well, Northwest West,
but
they are African.
But we see, like I said, a lot of presidents have been changed in South Africa. We have been having elections in South Africa at different intervals, but we have not seen change. The crime rates that we saw in South Africa in 1980s, in 2000s, they are the same crimes that we are having today. They are the same crimes, have not changed, but they are just increasing. But we have been having presidents, gov budgets have been pronounced every